most expensive person in your life ain't your enemy, it ain't your ex, or the IRS. It's the impulsive people in your circle, and that includes you. Every person I know who lost their marriage, their bag, or their peace can point to one impulsive person they refuse to walk away from. This isn't about blame. This is about the lasting damaging effects of impulsivity. And some of y'all will use this to indict everybody but yourself. First off, what is impulsivity? It's acting on an urge without thinking through what comes after. For decades, psychologists and neuroscientists, health pioneers been publishing reports on how impulsivity can ruin every aspect of your life. Yet nobody in your circle discussing it. By the time we done, you gonna understand exactly what's been bleeding you of your energy, earning potential, creativity, and peace. If you spent years believing the reason you don't finish what you start is due to a lack of discipline, willpower, or maybe even laziness, stop doing that. Multiple studies over the last 2.5 decades prove procrastination ain't a discipline problem. It's an emotional problem. That's right. You're not avoiding the work. You're avoiding the emotion. That's why your routines and resolutions don't work. Your emotional foundation is weak. Me and Romani will be hosting a live 90-minute workshop breaking down the 5 emotional blind spots, crippling your follow-through, and a blueprint for what to do about them. And yes, it's a live workshop, so none of this multitasking and half-assing. Boss, if you are ready to be held emotionally accountable so you can start getting things done, I dare you to click the link in the description. Let's get back to the program. In my 20s, I quit 2 jobs in 1 calendar year because I felt some type of way about a manager. No savings, no plan, just an attitude in a 1-bedroom I couldn't afford. I told myself I was standing on principle. The principle was that my nervous system couldn't tolerate being told what to do for another 8 hours that week. That wasn't principle. That was a tantrum with a paycheck-shaped consequence. That same year, I proposed to a woman I'd been dating 3 months. Didn't know her debt, didn't know if she could read, didn't know what she thought about kids or money or whether her last relationship was actually over. What I knew was deep down inside, I felt so inadequate that I couldn't believe a woman this beautiful was giving me a shot. So I had to rush to lock it down. 7 months later, we was divorced. And the only honest thing I could tell my mama was her daughter-in-law was pregnant for her ex. That's impulsivity, acting on a feeling like it's a fact. Treating chemistry like compatibility, letting your body co-sign decisions your brain hadn't reviewed. This applies to spending, eating, drinking, cracking, fighting, posting, parenting, quitting, signing things you ain't read, and trusting people 3 times after they showed you who they was the first time. Most impulsive decisions don't feel impulsive in the moment. They feel like courage, like action, like being a man who don't hesitate. That's the lie. The truth is, this is the sign of a man who can't sit with, deal with, or accept his emotional discomfort long enough to assess it. So instead, he reacts prematurely, thinks out loud, burning bridges with every vowel. By the time I hit 40, I had moved cities 6 times for reasons I could no longer explain. Left the vocational program I had taken loans out for. Walked away from at least 1 relationship that probably could have grown into something. And I told myself the same lie every single time. I'm just following my instincts. What I was actually doing was running from any feeling that I didn't know how to process, any feeling I didn't know how to handle. Here's what most people ain't ready to hear. Impulsivity ain't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. You can also be the man who keeps quietly walking away from things that would actually heal him because sitting in his feelings seems worse than starting over. That's still impulsivity. I've been in arguments where I said things to people I loved that took years to walk back. I've been in business meetings where I shook hands on deals I hadn't read. I was the man who'd get mad at the truth because the truth came in a tone I didn't like. Just an impulsive adult running from any feelings that seem to reaffirm my negative self-image. Type bars in the comments if you get that. This might sound like I'm making excuses for the morally handicapped, but in most instances, impulsivity ain't a moral failing. I reference the ACE study all the time, but I never really gave y'all the tea. In the late 90s, Dr. Vincent Felitti got inspired to do the ACE study because of a failed obesity clinic. Stay with me, okay? Because this is paradigm shifting game. In his obesity program, which was really an effective weight loss treatment, a lot of patients was dropping out or gaining the weight back. especially the patients who was most successful at losing the weight. Dr. Felitti had 3 discoveries. Number 1, folks who suffered SA in their childhood subconsciously saw being overweight as a protective strategy to keep others at distance and avoid unwanted attention. Key word, subconsciously. Number 2, overeating, smoking, or substance abuse were often the patient's unconscious solutions to cope with deep-seated anxiety and trauma. Key word, unconscious. 3, they realized that if childhood trauma manifested this way in somewhat stable middle-class America, ain't no telling how childhood trauma might affect health nationwide, and might it affect mental health as well. So that's when Dr. Felitti teamed up with Dr. Robin Ander to do the ACE study in the late 90s. Think Bone Thugs, Outkast, Wu-Tang, College Boys. They asked 17,000 grown folks about the chaos they survived as kids. What they found was simple. The rougher the childhood, the more likely health risk behaviors such as smoking, drug use, offing oneself, sexual risk-taking, etc. You want to know what was also later established? The rougher the childhood, the worse the impulse control as an adult. Type bars in the comments if you get that. This was their nervous system reacting to self-preserve. Now they gonna say I'm making excuses for dysfunctional women, but I'm just speaking from personal experience. I once dated a woman that was not only robbed of her voice, she was nurtured and abused simultaneously, raised by people who suffered mental illnesses but were never diagnosed. She too grew up with mental health conditions that were never addressed. So on top of the crazy household stuff, she grew up comparing herself to much more competent peers, wondering why she was the only one with kids before she finished high school, why she could be a devout employee but could never follow through on her own endeavors, and had to lie to her family about everything. You know what she learned to do impulsively to avoid her overreactive parent, to avoid her mama's volatile outbursts, to mask her deeper sense of inadequacy? She learned to lie. It was a reflex. The minute she felt threatened, even if it was just her ego that felt threatened, she'd lie. And then she'd convince herself the lie was true. What's even crazier, she was incapable of apology. So she'd gaslight you to the hilt. She'd disassociate from the truth like a newly elected public official, then become extremely affectionate, as if to compensate for the damage of her lies and impulsive behavior. Same way her mama did to her, compensating for her dishonesty, abuse, and lack of accountability with affection, but never addressing the behavior. And all of that would happen within seconds. And while consulting with a therapist on how to navigate my online coaching endeavors, I found out her behavior matched a real diagnosis psychiatrists call cluster B. Translation: cluster B is a fancy way of saying these are folks whose emotions run them, not the other way around. They moods flip without warning. They can love you in the morning and turn on you by noon without anything happening in between. Their impulsivity feels like passion to them, but lands like chaos on everybody else. They ain't lying because they evil. They lying because they in a world too unstable to hold a steady version of the truth. This is a huge part of why most of us is emotionally bankrupt as adults. We've normalized impulsive behavior. We glorify it. We pay money to see it. We champion it. We reward people for it. And just like white folks, we give standing ovations when we act out impulsively against our own kind. I said what I said. Matter of fact, buzz! Now would be a good time to hit that like button if you like something. And if you motivated as hell, hit the notification bell. But if you really want to see my channel grow, you gotta hype this video and share it with your folks. Buzz! After 1 impulsive partner, that's bad luck. After 2, that's pattern recognition. After 3, it ain't just them, it's you too. The impulsive people you keep around ain't a coincidence. They're a frequency you've been tuned into since you was a child. And every time one walks out, another one walks in. Because your nervous system recognizes them like family before your rationale has a chance to say run. Your body recognizes them. Your guard drops. You feel comfortable in chaos because the chaos feels like the shit you learned to manage and cope with throughout your childhood. That ain't love. That's familiarity. Every impulsive person you tolerated, defended, or married is a mirror. Not because they came to teach you a lesson. A lot of times, the man who can't sit still picks women who can't sit still. Or the brother who can't follow through tolerates partners who never finish what they start. The man who learned to lie as a child picks women who lie to his face. That impulsive ex you stayed with too long, that homie who keeps dragging you into chaos, they remind your nervous system of somebody who raised you. You picked them because they felt familiar or fed your parentification identity. So for those of you who don't know what parentification means, do a search for this video right here and it'll all come together like the Beatles. Buzz! But in essence, we stay seeking out people we can manage because the people we can't manage make us feel useless, unsafe, and insecure. Don't you get it, dog? For a lot of us, our eating habits, our emotional avoidance, our attitudes are all coping mechanisms tailor-made for the dysfunctional environments we survived as children. Type bars in the comments if you get that. So how do you identify impulsivity in yourself? Well, it's 3 signs. 1, you make big decisions in the middle of strong emotions. 2, you can't sit in silence with your own thoughts for more than 3 minutes. Shit, you might even fall asleep to noise, TV on and shit. And 3, you gotta pretend like the compromises and vestiges in your wake were not your fault. In other words, you either in denial or you drowning in regret. So what do you do about it? Because I don't think you're gonna like the answer. In Dr. Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, he puts a lot of emphasis on creating space between the stimuli and the reaction. We talk a lot about this inside my community. The way I see it today is the stimuli, right? It can be anything that triggers an emotion. And it don't gotta be a negative emotion, it could be any emotion. Our default, especially those of us who grew up being made to feel stupid or made to feel inadequate, our default is to have an answer, become defensive and react, or to have some kind of quick comeback, to appear clever or right, to avoid the emotional discomfort. But what if we took a pause? What if we did like Dr. Frankl said and put a nice long space between the stimuli and the reaction? What I have found is the more space we put between the stimuli and the reaction, the more the reaction becomes a responsible response. You see the difference? The gap between the stimuli and the response makes room for rationale. Rationale? What's that? Military food? No. Rationale is logic behind a belief, an action, or ideology. When you allow for that pause, you slow down. You learn to recognize what your body do when it's about to make a move it's gonna regret. And the research keeps pointing to one thing. Whether it's prayer, meditation, breath work, journaling, talk therapy, the answer comes back the same. Build a pause between feeling and acting. A real pause. Even 30 seconds. That's where the work begins. That's what saves relationships. That's what earns you respect. That's what grants you clarity. If you haven't figured it out by now, the real reason you keep stalling on your goals has nothing to do with how disciplined, motivated, or focused you are. Men hate it when I say this, but your failure to commit to your ideas and even your dreams is an emotional issue. Don't take my word for it. Research has been confirming this for over 2.5 decades. Look up the Tyson-Brzezinski study, the Sorois and Pico study. You ain't avoiding the task. You ain't even avoiding accountability. What you avoiding is emotional discomfort. Yes, women too. That's the real reason your follow-through is garbage. You don't need another planner. You need emotional awareness. Romani Malco and I is hosting a 90-minute live workshop where we expose the 5 emotional blind spots sabotaging most people's progress, and we hand you the exact playbook to get you active on your shit. Show up ready to take notes and be called on. This ain't no replay. We live. If you done sleeping on your own ambition and need some real ones to wake your ass up, link is in the description. Let's get back to the program. I read a book by Melissa Orlov, and she broke down how people with ADHD tend to exhibit a lot of the behavior I just described in this video. In her book, she mentioned that we often mistake people with ADHD for not having integrity. I also heard Dr. Gabor Mate say ADHD don't start as a brain defect, it starts as a coping mechanism for traumatic events in childhood. Bottom line, quality parenting matters and some folks can't be saved. But here is a real cost to being with people who are incapable of regulating their emotions. They will drain you emotionally because you will always be in conflict. And that conflict will also rob you of the time necessary for more productive endeavors. Furthermore, they will put you into a loop of conflict anticipation, meaning you will continue to relive the very childhood you've been attempting to outgrow. Not to mention the potential of catching a stray because you look guilty by association. In my younger years, the only thing that cost me more opportunity in love, career, and livelihood than impulsivity was my need to be in charge. Remember how I mentioned parentification a little earlier? I really break it down in this video right here. So give this video your undivided attention. Pause.